In the summer of 2026, a football community in a small Idaho suburb lined the hallways of a hospital, not to visit a star, but to say goodbye to their offensive line coach. He'd never been drafted, he'd never been a household name, but 8 years earlier he'd started at right guard for a team that won the Super Bowl. His name was Jordan Devey. He was 38 years old, and he died just 2 days before what would have been his 15th wedding anniversary. This is the story of how a kid who wasn't even allowed to play high school football ended up protecting NFL quarterbacks, and why, according to his own family, the game may have taken more from him than it ever gave back. Jordan Devey was born on the 11th of January 1988 in American Fork, Utah, a quiet city tucked beneath the Wasatch Mountains, the kind of place where Friday night lights mean everything. But Jordan didn't play under those lights. Not in high school anyway. As a kid, he developed a condition called Osgood-Schlatter disease, a painful inflammation of the growth plate just below the knee, common in adolescents going through rapid growth spurts, especially ones already carrying a big frame. For a boy his size, it was enough to keep him off the field entirely. So while his classmates suited up on Friday nights, Jordan found other outlets. He played basketball. And in a detail that surprises almost everyone who learns it, he played in the marching band, tuba, trombone, and violin. A 6'7" teenager who would go on to protect Super Bowl winning quarterbacks once carried a tuba across a high school football field at halftime, not a football. After high school, Jordan did what a lot of young men in his community did. He left for 2 years to serve a church mission, spending that time in Costa Rica. And it was there, thousands of miles from Utah, watching and playing pickup football with other missionaries and locals, that something clicked. He came home with a plan nobody had written for him. He was going to play college football. Not because he'd been playing his whole life, because he'd fallen in love with the game late, and he wanted to catch up. In 2009, he walked on at Snow College, a junior college in rural Utah. No scholarship, no guarantee, just a roster spot he had to fight for. He bounced between positions as the coaching staff tried to figure out where a raw, athletic, oversized 1-year-old fit best. 2 years later, in 2011, he transferred to the University of Memphis. And this is where the story stops being about potential and starts being about performance. Over his final 2 seasons with the Tigers, Devey started all 24 games the team played. He took every single offensive snap the team ran across 2 seasons, 1,568 of them. Not most, not almost all, every one. He closed out his college career with second-team All-Conference USA honors in 2012. Not bad for a kid who wasn't allowed to play the sport in high school. Then came the 2013 NFL Draft, and Jordan Devey's name was never called. Going undrafted is one of the loneliest moments in professional sports. There's no ceremony, no press conference, no phone call. You just watch the rounds end and realize the league has decided, collectively, that you're not worth a pick. For most players in that position, that's the end of the story. A tryout here, a practice squad cut there, and then real life begins. Jordan Devey didn't let it be the end of the story. The Baltimore Ravens signed Devey as an undrafted free agent in 2013. It didn't last. He spent the off-season with the team but never made it onto the regular season roster. In September of that year, he caught on with the New England Patriots practice squad. If you know anything about the NFL, you know the practice squad is purgatory. You practice with the team all week. You might even wear a headset on the sideline during games. But you're one signature away from unemployment every single Tuesday. Teams cycle practice squad players constantly. Surviving there for any length of time already says something about a player's work ethic, because nobody is watching game tape of practice squad snaps. Coaches are watching effort. Devey survived it. Not just for weeks, for an entire season, and into the next one. In 2014, it finally paid off. Devey made the Patriots' active roster and got his first real NFL action. 7 regular season games, 4 of them as a starter at guard, protecting a quarterback named Tom Brady in an offense that was building toward something special. That something special turned out to be Super Bowl 99. New England beat Seattle in one of the most famous finishes in Super Bowl history, a goal line interception that will be replayed for as long as the sport exists. And Jordan Devey, the undrafted junior college walk-on who wasn't allowed to play high school football, was on that roster. He has a Super Bowl ring. Most players' careers plateau after a moment like that. Devey's kept moving. In the summer of 2015, New England traded him to the San Francisco 49ers, and it was there away from a championship roster stacked with talent that he saw the heaviest workload of his career, 15 games, 9 of them starts at guard. For a lineman, that's not just playing time. That's a team trusting you to hold up, snap after snap, against some of the most physically dominant men on the planet. From 2016 through 2018, Devey settled in with the Kansas City Chiefs 3 full seasons in the same building, the longest stretch of stability in his NFL career. And it happened to be the exact window when Kansas City was assembling the core that would soon become a dynasty. Devey shared a locker room with a young Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce before either of them had won a single championship. He wasn't a star on that roster. He was part of the machinery that let the stars do their jobs. He closed out his career with 1-year stints with the Oakland Raiders in 2019 and the Buffalo Bills in 2020, appearing in 1 game for Buffalo before his playing days wound down. He attended training camp with the Bills again in 2021 but didn't make the final roster, and that was effectively the end. Final numbers: 44 regular season games, 21 starts, 6 different organizations, 1 Super Bowl ring, 8 years in a league where the average career lasts roughly 3. For an undrafted player, that's not just a career. That's a triumph of persistence over talent evaluation, a man who kept getting told not good enough for a guaranteed roster spot and kept answering with his play. But offensive line, more than almost any position in football, exacts a toll that doesn't show up in a stat sheet. When Devey's playing career ended in 2021, he didn't disappear from public life, he pivoted hard into something almost nobody would guess: cookies. Devey and his wife Lindsay opened franchise locations of a gourmet cookie company called Cookie Co., first in Lenexa, Kansas, then Overland Park, then a Kansas City location. Devey, only 35 at the time, talked about the business the same way he talked about football: competition, teamwork, precision. He joked to a local reporter that running a cookie shop demanded the same steady hands and hours of practice that football did, and that he'd put his shop's cookies up against anybody's. It's a small, human detail, but it matters for understanding who Jordan Devey was outside the sport. A man who found 9 years of stability inside one of the most brutal professions in America, and then, when it ended, chose to build something warm and communal with his wife instead of chasing the spotlight. Eventually, the Devey family, Jordan, Lindsay, and their 4 children relocated again, this time settling in Eagle, Idaho, a suburb of Boise. And it's there that Jordan found the role that, by every account from people who knew him, meant the most to him. He became the offensive line coach for Eagle High School's football team. Not a paid celebrity ambassador. A real hands-on line coach, teaching teenagers the same fundamentals that had taken him from a walk-on spot at a junior college to a Super Bowl ring. He didn't stop there, he also coached his own children's youth teams and volunteered extensively within his church community. People who knew him in Eagle describe a pattern, not an isolated act of kindness. The Eagle Stallions youth football program, in a tribute posted after his death, said his impact on youth sports in the community wasn't measured in trophies or championships, it was measured in the lives he touched. They said he made every player feel seen and every family feel welcomed. His own father, Kerry Devey, said something similar about Jordan's entire life, not just his coaching years, that his son had been a pillar in every community he was ever part of, from junior college all the way through every NFL locker room he played in. That's the man the Eagle community thought they knew completely. What almost nobody outside his immediate family knew was what he might have been carrying. According to reporting from KSL in Salt Lake City, on Tuesday, the 21st of July 2026, Jordan Devey attempted to take his own life at home. His wife, Lindsay, found him. With a 911 dispatcher guiding her, she performed CPR. Paramedics got him to the hospital. Because he still had a heartbeat when first responders arrived, doctors began life-saving measures, including placing him on a ventilator. But the damage was severe. Doctors declared him brain dead the following day, Wednesday, July 22. Because Lindsay had acted immediately and doctors had been able to stabilize him briefly, one thing became possible that otherwise wouldn't have been: organ donation. Jordan had been a registered organ donor, and his family has said publicly that they wanted that fact known, that even in the worst moment of their lives, some part of Jordan's decision, made long before any of this, meant other people would go on living. He died on the 23rd of July 2026. He was 38 years old. 2 days later would have been his and Lindsay's 15th wedding anniversary. Instead, Lindsay marked the date with a post that read, in part, that it would have been their 15th year, that he was their hero, and that their hearts ached in his absence. The Ada County Coroner's Office confirmed the death as a suicide. Within days, hundreds of people from the Treasure Valley community gathered for what local outlets called a hero walk in his honor, lining hospital hallways and streets to pay tribute to a man most of them had known only as their kids line coach. In the aftermath, Jordan's parents, Kerry and Leslie Devey, spoke to Fox 13 Inches Salt Lake City and said something that has become central to how this story is being understood, not as an isolated tragedy, but as part of a much larger, ongoing crisis in football. They believe Jordan may have been suffering from chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, the degenerative brain disease linked to repeated head trauma, found posthumously in a significant number of former NFL players who've been studied. Leslie Devey said she believed it was very possible, citing what she described as visible signs and symptoms, and pointing to what she called years of brutal hits her son absorbed not just in games, but in the routine violence of daily practice that never makes a highlight reel. She said Jordan had been researching CTE signs and symptoms himself in the time before his death, and that she believed he'd recognized some of them in his own experience. Here's the part of this story that makes it especially difficult. CTE can currently only be diagnosed after death through an examination of brain tissue. But because of the specific circumstances surrounding how Jordan died, including the life-saving measures performed at the hospital, his family says doctors were not able to test for it. That means there may never be a definitive answer. Jordan Devey's family will likely go the rest of their lives believing football may have altered his brain in ways medicine can describe in general, but can't confirm in his individual case. That uncertainty is its own kind of grief. It's worth being careful here, because this is where a story like this can tip into speculation it doesn't deserve. CTE is a real, well-documented condition, studied extensively in former NFL players, and the Devey family's belief that it may have played a role is based on their own observations of Jordan in his final months, not something anyone reporting on this story can verify independently. What can be said with certainty is narrower and, in some ways, more important. A 8-year-old father of 4, by every account a devoted husband and a beloved coach, died by suicide. His family is choosing to speak publicly about a possible connection to the sport that gave him a Super Bowl ring in the hope that it might help someone else. That's not a small thing. Former players' families staying silent about suicide out of stigma or privacy has historically made it harder for the public and for current players to understand the real scope of this issue. The Deveys shows the opposite. It would be easy for a story like this to end on the diagnosis nobody could confirm or the anniversary that never came. But that's not how the people who actually knew Jordan Devey are choosing to remember him. The tributes that poured in after his death didn't focus on his NFL stat line. They focused on a man who chose, again and again, to show up for people who had no obligation to be in his life: teenagers on a high school offensive line who'd never see an NFL contract, kids on youth teams who just wanted someone to teach them the game the right way. The Eagle Stallions organization put it simply: some people leave a legacy far greater than wins and losses. They said Jordan Devey was one of those people. He went from a kid who wasn't allowed to play the sport to a walk-on who took every single snap for 2 college seasons, to an undrafted free agent who somehow ended up with a championship ring, to a cookie shop owner, to a line coach who gave his time away for free because he believed in what the game could still teach kids, even after everything it may have taken from him. He leaves behind Lindsay, his wife of nearly 15 years, and their 4 children. Jordan Devey spent his entire career protecting other people, quarterbacks who got to make the highlight reel throws because he held the line in front of them, unnoticed, play after play. In the end, his family says, he may have been fighting something that no amount of toughness or persistence could block. If his story does anything, maybe it's this, reminding us that the men we watch absorb hit after hit on Sundays are still absorbing something long after the cameras stop rolling, and that asking how they're really doing might matter more than any highlight ever could.